Howdy. This video is to help you annotate Sylvia Plath's poem, Fever 103 Degrees. The poem, Fever 103 Degrees, describes a speaker caught in an hallucinogenic state of a high fever. So it's a conflicting poem that kind of weaves in mythological elements, like the story of the Divine Comedy, with Plath's own personal kind of appreciation. Through this internalized experience, Plath basically parallels the persona's metaphysical adventure with Dante's journey through hell and through purgatory before finally ascending to paradise at the end of the poem, cleansed of all types of sin. When Plath talked about this poem in a statement to the BBC back in 1962, Plath said this. She said, "This poem is about two kinds of fire, the fires of hell, which merely agonize, and the fires of heaven, which purify. During the poem, the first sort of fire suffers itself into the second." So by the end, the personas basically reinvented themselves. The body of the persona has burned out the infection of this that this fever is part of, and they're pure. But we need to question, are they too pure for this world? Is the persona too pure for this state? Critics who talk about the poem in the wake of the Cold War basically regard Plath's poetry as an attempt to make sense of the Cold War. So through using things like abstract representations, historical allusions, we know that she's used some historical allusions to the Holocaust and things like that previously, but also using something like abstract, like a fever and how it feels to make sense of wider metaphysical questions. Plath's work here can be seen as a source of Cold War anxiety, using the fever as a source of destruction and referencing Hiroshima directly. She actually uses and talks about Hiroshima at the end. So, where do we go from here? Well, let's try and annotate line by line, looking through the poem. So the implication is that you've kind of already read it and have some idea, but we will go through the poem. All right, it opens Fever 103 degrees, obviously talking about a fever and that it hits 103 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. She questions pure, opens with this type of rhetorical question, right? Pure, what does it mean? So the very first lines already kind of tell us something about this persona, right? That are they pure? Do they feel pure after this type of fever? What does it mean? They're already questioning themselves. This is where then Plath kind of comes in and brings in these the mythological allusions. She says the tongues of hell are dull, dull as the triple tongues of dull fat Cerberus, who wheezes at the gate. Okay, well, she's using a simile and she's already connecting to Cerberus, who's basically the three-headed hound or the three-headed dog that guards Hades, that guards kind of the place into hell. All right, so she questions and personifies hell and then interweaves basically how he's the one that guards, Cerberus guards the gate here to let anyone in. She says, incapable of licking clean, the ague tendon, the sin. All right, well, there might be some links in here to Achilles and the Achilles tendon as being part of the weak spot, right? And then she repeats the sin. So questioning, what has the persona done wrong in this moment? Now, in terms of structurally, Plath's work is kind of consistent. It's her signature style where she writes kind of with 3 lines in each stanza. She does have a lot of kind of internal rhyme and a lot of sort of like alliteration and repetition that characterizes her work. But here we look at kind of a narrator or a persona who finds some type of cathartic release from this repressed sort of life. Now, remember that Hughes's poem, just called Fever, actually offers a different type of perspective, kind of questioning his role in her illness and in her sickness, and reframes, I suppose, if this poem with her really looks at a new awareness of her identity and her place in the world, then Hughes's poem kind of reframes his place in helping her sickness. So moving on through the poem, The tinder cries, the indelible smell of snuffed candle. Love, love, the low smokes roll from me like Isadora's scarves. I'm in a fright, one scarf will catch, an anchor in the wheel. Okay, well, the tinder, we're looking at this idea like it's unable to be forgotten. We've got the indelible smell of love, love, the low smoked roll. So you've got a lot of assonance and a lot of alliteration sounds kind of in here. Um, but I think she's also talking about the fire that's sort of kindling, right? Whether she's talking about the fire in terms of her passion and her creativity, but how of a snuffed candle, there's a lost kind of life, or there's a lost sense of security for our persona. I really like the intertextual connection she makes here. So, love, love, the low smokes roll from me like Isadora's scarves. I'm in fright of one scarf will catch an anchor in the wheel. Okay, so Isadora Duncan was kind of like a famous actress. I think she starred in a lot of film noir type movies. And basically, she died in a car accident when her long scarf kind of was flowing off her that she had wrapped around her neck, and it got caught in the wheel of a car. Okay, so she's kind of someone, I suppose, who has got similarities to Plath, and and Plath's ability to like live in the present, be really beautiful, and be really kind of spontaneous with her world and her work, and then kind of likens that to Isadora herself, who accidentally died in this car accident. You've got the fact that she links into some color imagery. She says, such yellow, sullen smokes make their own element. They will not rise. You can tell that she's still using this kind of like fiery language as a way to characterize the fever, and that they make their own element. They force and create something else. She says, they will not rise, but trundle round the globe, choking the aged and the meek, the weak, the hothouse baby in its crib, the ghastly orchid hanging its hanging garden in the air, devilish leopard. Okay, so the smoke or whatever, it doesn't rise, it doesn't move anywhere. You can tell that she's got um, a lot of imagery associated with fire. So she's got the smoke, the infant, the orchid, the jungle, all of these kind of images, all of these metaphors, all kind of like weave themselves and morph into one. This creates a sense of basically a soul that's so compromised of sin, so compromised of like utter passion that it will be snuffed out or needs to be cleansed. Okay, choking the aged and the meek and the weak, all of it kind of this type of fever and this type of passion really um, morphs and really kind of overtakes someone. She's got the hothouse baby in its crib. Now, is she talking about the devil, but is she also making links to religious connections, right? Um, Particularly when it's talking about the ghastly orchid. There's this real kind of contrast between the way that an orchid's meant to be described, the fact that she says it's ghastly, like it's awful. She says, hanging in its hanging garden in the air, devilish leopard. Is she questioning here about how a leopard can't change its spots? Maybe. But she's also kind of, interweaving, like I said, the religious metaphors here, the imagery of the garden, things like that are left kind of unresolved or left disillusioned. She says, radiation turned it white and killed it in an hour, greasing the bodies of adulterers like Hiroshima ash and eating it. Well, whatever this kind of anger or whatever this fever is trying to get rid of itself, right? The radiation stuff is probably making links, and she clears that up for us later when she talks about Hiroshima. But she's making links to the Cold War, and making links to, like nuclear devastation and nuclear destruction. They're kind of, the persona's kind of confused. And the fact that it killed it in an hour, it was sudden, it was quick. It really destroyed kind of the bodies like Hiroshima ash and eating it. Moving on, she says, the sin, the sin. Darling, all night I've been flickering off, on, off, on. Okay, it seems like the last line here is then it kind of moves back into something specific that happens between a persona and their loved one. Okay, we can always just assume it's Ted Hughes, but they're speaking to someone familiar. Familiar, sorry. So she says that the sin. It's almost like a breath kind of rises up from this kind of hypnosis that she can't sort of get rid of, all right, or that she's always thinking about. And then she refers to, like I said, someone familiar. Darling, all night I've been flickering off, on, off, on. Well, she's probably obviously linking to the fever that she has, and either this like stage of sleep where she is awake and not, or where the fever wakes her, or whether her dreams and her consciousness kind of come on and off. She says the sheets grow heavy as a lecher's kiss. Got a nice little simile there, but that wherever she's sleeping, it feels like, and it's an infection or something, and the fabric feels like some type of flesh. Heavy as a lecher's kiss means that you're kind of, you're passing on that sense of lechery, which is a type of kind of, adultery or being cruel. 3 days, 3 nights, lemon water, chicken, water make me rich. All right, so she's being a little bit more specific here. So 3 days, 3 nights. There's also some biblical allusions there. And the lemon water, the chicken water, the water make me rich. She's basically telling us that now this type of um, the way that she is being taken care of is obviously, through the maternal and normal things that you would do if you were sick, by giving, chicken and lemon soup or whatnot that help build your immune system back up. She says, I'm too pure for you or anyone. Your body hurts me as the world hurts God. Okay, here's that kind of throwback again to the opening line. I'm too pure for you or anyone. Your body hurts me. So she's now, like, she's taking her burning now to this type of purity, and she says your body, talking to whoever is making her feel this way, as the world, it hurts me as the world hurts God. There's a real sense of victimhood here, that whatever someone has done to her, it really hurts for her to feel that, the religious connotations to your body hurts me as the world hurts God. She says, I'm a lantern. So there's that type of light imagery and light metaphors that she always gives. I am a lantern, my head a moon of Japanese paper, my gold beaten skin infinitely delicate and infinitely expensive. Okay, well, my head a moon. There's again that kind of light imagery, right? But something metaphysical, something um, not supernatural, but something that is out of this world, literally. My head, a moon of Japanese paper. You got that kind of connection there. My gold beaten skin, infinitely delicate and infinitely expensive. Again, the light imagery, the way that she's turned after or during the fever, and how there's now this sense of kind of change, right? And we feel kind of, I don't know, a bit wobbly or whatever because of these lanterns, the way that she has made herself this light metaphor who is delicate and has to be treated or has to be held kind of accordingly. Moving on. Does not my heat astound you? And my light, all by myself, I am a huge camellia, glowing and coming and going, flush on flush. All right, I am a huge camellia. So our first person persona comes in. I'm a huge camellia, a plant, a flower that we've got, glowing and coming and going, flush on flush. She's this real kind of beautiful plant or whatnot now. Before, where she mentions the garden, now she's saying that she is going to grow and thrive and restore herself, flush on flush. I think I'm going up, I think I may rise. The beads of hot metal fly. And I, love, I am a pure acetylene virgin attended by roses. Okay, so a couple of things. You've got this repetition of I think I'm going up, I think I may rise, and the I over and over again. Okay, there's kind of some sense of power and strength now coming out of breaking this fever. I think I'm going up, I think I may rise. Whether that's from the imagery of heaven or, sorry, from hell that we had earlier with Cerberus, but they have this kind of newfound freedom, this newfound sense of courage. She says, the beads of hot metal fly, and I love I. So we've got this kind of like hot molten lava imagery happening here. And she mentions this, acetylene, I think is how you pronounce it, but I'm not too sure, which is a type of accelerant. She questions, I am a pure acetylene virgin attended by roses. Well, this idea of the virgin part comes back to the persona thinking that they are pure, pure of this world, maybe that they have eradicated all the things that hold them back. If you want to talk about the patriarchy, if you want to talk about some of the abuse of Hughes, but also maybe how people claim their role and claim their world again post Cold War. It says, attended by roses, we've got the garden imagery, by kisses, by cherubim, um, which are the little messages from the gods. I'm not sure if you are aware, but they're, you know, the little, when you say cherubs, okay, the little messages from the gods. By whatever these pink things mean, not you nor him, not him, nor him, nor him. So the little line actually at the end there, it's meant to be, that's meant to be not him nor him. So she's kind of repeated that phrase again, right? Not you nor him. Now she could be talking about again Hughes. She could also be talking about Satan, so you know, talking about hell, the person that that guards hell. But she says, whatever all of this means, not you nor him, not him nor him, that repetition, myselves dissolving old whore petticoats to paradise. All right, there's last kind of lines. She's really talking about the duality of self, right? She talks a lot in some of her poetry about how she looks at the different selves involved in a human. Okay, like the different people and what you get from it. She talks about how we can be divided, that we're not just one thing, and that we shouldn't be pigeonholed into just being remembered as one hymn. The last line, to paradise, as well, is that connection back to, you know, rising to heaven or rising somewhere, this sense of ascension back to paradise, which is exactly what happens at the end of the Divine Comedy. Okay. So, you know, her work is driven and it is explored often by conflict. Yes, it might seem on the outset that it's the conflict of the fever and how it's actually interacting with her body as the conflict, but she could also be talking about, you know, women, women's ambivalence, or how angry they are, particularly with living in patriarchal worlds, being guided and told what to do and how they should behave and how they should react. I think she is quite an empowering, distinctive writer who is really also looking at the female imagination and the way that, like I said, she's not just being told and held as one thing. Yes, Hughes later in his poetry says that, you know, he helped and took care of Plath, but she doesn't see herself just as a woman, just as a mother, um, just as a victim. She sees and gives a lot of credibility to her own imaginative expression, using poetry as a way to talk about that type of expression. Okay. And that the mythical elements she weaves in here are just about the human soul, the human identity. She leaves us with this fever, a self feeding kind of fire that could be a metaphor for her own creative genius and also for her work that is used as an escape from, you know, her kind of patriarchal dominating male world. That's it.